The velvet box was gone. I stood there in front of my cedar chest, quilts thrown aside, my hands trembling like autumn leaves about to fall. For 48 years, that box had lived in the same spot, nestled beneath my grandmother's patchwork quilt, right next to the lavender sachets I made every spring. Now there was nothing but the faint outline where it used to rest, like a ghost of something precious. My heart hammered against my ribs. I dropped to my knees, ignoring the sharp protest from my hip, and dug through every layer of fabric. Nothing. I crawled to the closet, pulled out shoeboxes and Christmas wrapping paper I'd been saving since 1987. Still nothing. The emerald brooch my grandmother wore when she shook hands with President Roosevelt. The pearl earrings my father gave my mother when they had more love than money. The diamond locket that held a whisper of my son's baby hair, soft and golden, from back when his eyes still lit up when I walked into a room. All of it. Gone. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. Was I losing my mind? Had I moved them and forgotten? I'm 72, not senile, but Vanessa's voice echoed in my head from last week. Oh, Margie, you really should start writing things down. You know how forgetful you're getting. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. I wasn't forgetful. I was careful. Those jewels weren't just sparkly things to wear to church. They were my family's heartbeat, passed down through 5 generations of women who survived wars and loss and heartbreak. Each piece carried someone's story, someone's sacrifice. With shaking fingers, I pulled my phone from my cardigan pocket. The screen blurred through my tears as I dialed Caleb's number. My son. My boy. The one I raised alone after his father died, when Caleb was just 12. He answered on the 4th ring. Hey Mom, kind of a bad time. We're picking out tile for the new bathroom. Caleb. My voice cracked. The jewels. My mother's pearls, Grandma's brooch, they're gone. Someone took them. Silence. Not the concerned kind. The guilty kind. Mom, he said finally, and I heard Vanessa's voice in the background, sharp and impatient. Vanessa told me she took care of those. Took care of them? I repeated. The words tasted like rust. What does that mean? He sighed. Actually sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. She sold them. You weren't wearing them anymore, and honestly, they weren't safe just lying around in that old chest. The money went toward the bathroom remodel. You should see the tile we picked. It's this gorgeous marble that... The phone slipped from my hand. I sat there on the floor of my bedroom, surrounded by displaced quilts and open drawers, while my son kept talking into the void. His voice turned tinny and distant, something about updates and modern fixtures, and how I should be grateful. I reached down and picked up the phone. Caleb was still talking. And really, those old jewels came in handy. You understand, right, Mom? You weren't using them. Something inside me crystallized. Not broke. Breaking makes noise. This was different. This was cold and clear and sharp as the diamond that used to hang around my neck every Sunday. I have to go, I whispered. Mom, don't be like this. They were just. I hung up. Just. He said just. That night, I sat in the dark. The empty cedar chest sat open in my bedroom like a wound. My reflection stared back at me from the black window, pale, hollow, foolish. But here's what they didn't know. Those jewels weren't the only thing my family left me. That's when I realized if they thought I was done, they hadn't seen anything yet. Would you have forgiven them, or done what I did next? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for the truth that followed. I wasn't always this woman sitting in the dark, plotting revenge against her own son. There was a time when Caleb's laughter filled every corner of that white farmhouse. When he'd run through the kitchen door after school, grass-stained knees and all, yelling, Mom, guess what happened today? Like every small thing was a miracle worth sharing. That was before his father died. Before I became both mother and father. Before the jewels in that velvet box became the only proof that our family had ever been more than just the two of us, scraping by. I was 36 when Tom passed. Heart attack in his sleep, the kind people call peaceful, though there's nothing peaceful about waking up next to someone who'll never wake up again. Caleb found me that morning, standing in the doorway of our bedroom, just staring. He was 12, old enough to understand death, too young to understand forever. The pearl earrings were the first piece I almost sold. We needed money for the funeral, for the mortgage, for everything. I held them in my palm one night after Caleb fell asleep. These perfect cream-colored tears my father had given my mother on their first anniversary. They'd been poor back then. He'd saved for 8 months. I put them back in the box. Instead, I took a job at the diner on Route 7, slinging hash browns and coffee from 5 in the morning until 2. Then I'd race home, check on Caleb, and head to my evening shift at the textile factory. My hands smelled like grease and industrial soap. My feet ached so bad some nights I'd cry while soaking them in Epsom salt. But Caleb had clean clothes for school, hot meals, a mother who showed up to every parent-teacher conference, even if she had to leave work early and lose those hours. The emerald brooch got me through his senior year. Not by selling it, by wearing it. My supervisor at the factory, Mrs. Chun, noticed it one day when my collar shifted. She asked about it, and I told her the story. How my grandmother had worn it the day she met President Roosevelt. How she'd been so nervous her hands shook, but she'd stood tall anyway. Mrs. Chun smiled. 2 weeks later, I got promoted to floor manager. Better pay. Day shift only. She never said it outright, but I knew she'd seen something in that brooch, in that story. She'd seen a woman from a family of survivors. I kept every piece. Through broken water heaters and unexpected car repairs and Caleb's college application fees. Other mothers in town would ask how I did it, raising a boy alone. I'd smile and say something about hard work and prayer. But the truth? Those jewels reminded me I came from women who endured, who survived, who passed down more than just pretty stones, they passed down spine. Then Caleb brought Vanessa home. It was Thanksgiving 5 years ago. He'd been dating her for 3 months and wanted us to meet. She stepped out of his car wearing heels, so I wondered how she'd walked from the driveway. Black dress, designer sunglasses, hair so sleek it looked painted on. "Margie," she'd squealed, like we were old friends. Nobody called me Margie. I was Margaret or Mom or Mrs. Linton. But I smiled. I tried. She picked at my turkey, said she was mostly plant-based now. She looked around my kitchen and said rustic in a way that meant old. When I served dessert on my mother's china, the set with the tiny blue flowers, the one I'd hand-washed for 40 years, she whispered to Caleb, loud enough for me to hear. "Babe, are these safe to eat off? They look ancient." Caleb laughed. My boy, who used to defend me against anyone who said a wrong word, laughed. That should have been my first warning. Over the next few years, Vanessa's visits became invasions. She'd walk through my house pointing at things. "You should really update these cabinets. This couch has got to go. Margie, when are you going to join the 21st century?" And Caleb? He'd nod along. Sometimes he'd even add his own suggestions. "Mom, she's got a point. This stuff is pretty dated." Dated. Like the furniture I'd saved up months to buy. Like the quilts my grandmother had sewn by hand. Like me. I'd catch them whispering in corners during visits. Vanessa would be showing Caleb something on her phone, real estate listings I learned later. Places with good resale value once I was gone. Not dead. Just gone. Tucked away somewhere I wouldn't embarrass them with my outdated existence. The worst part? I still cooked for them. Still asked about their lives. Still pretended I didn't hear the things they said about me when they thought I'd gone deaf along with becoming old. Can you spot the moment betrayal starts? Comment below if you've ever trusted the wrong person. I'd lie awake some nights wondering when I'd lost my son. Was it when his father died? When he went to college? When Vanessa's pretty face and sharp words convinced him that his mother's love was just another old thing that needed replacing. I didn't know then that the same woman smiling at my dinner table would one day rob me blind. Vanessa started calling it helping about 6 months before she stole my jewels. She'd show up on random Tuesday mornings with her expensive coffee and her fake concern. Margie, I'm worried about you living in this big house all alone. What if you fall? What if something happens? I'm 72, not helpless. I still walked 2 miles every morning. Still did my own grocery shopping. Still kept my house cleaner than most people half my age. But she'd shake her head like I was already halfway to the grave, and Caleb would back her up over speakerphone. Mom, Vanessa's just trying to help. You should be grateful. Grateful. That word again. The pressure started small. Suggestions about downsizing. Brochures for active senior communities left on my kitchen counter. Comments about how exhausting it must be to maintain a whole house at my age. Then it got bigger. One Sunday after church, Caleb sat me down at my own kitchen table, the one I'd served him breakfast at for 30 years, and said they'd been exploring options. What kind of options? I asked, though I already knew. Vanessa jumped in, her voice honey-sweet and poisonous. We found this wonderful place about 40 minutes away. Meadowbrook Senior Living. They have activities, Margie. Bingo nights. A pool. You'd make so many friends. I have friends, I said quietly. Old friends die, Mom. Caleb's voice was gentle but final. You need to think about your future. About safety. This house is falling apart. My house wasn't falling apart. It had character. History. It had watched my son grow from a boy to a man, even if that man no longer recognized his own mother. And what happens to this house? I asked, though I knew that answer too. They exchanged a look. The kind of look that said they'd rehearsed this conversation. We'd sell it, Caleb said. Use the money to pay for your care at Meadowbrook. And honestly, Mom, whatever's left over would be a huge help for us. We're trying to start a family and you want to sell my home to pay for your remodel, I finished. Vanessa's smile tightened. That's not fair, Margie. We're thinking of you. You'd be so much happier around people your own age. People my own age. Like I was some expired product that needed to be stored with similar items. I didn't argue. I learned a long time ago that arguing with people who've already made up their minds is like screaming into wind. So I nodded and said I'd think about it, and they left satisfied, probably already picking out paint colors for the rooms they'd got. That was March. By April, Vanessa was showing up weekly. Just checking on you, she'd say, but her eyes would scan my house like an appraiser. She'd open drawers, peek into closets, run her fingers over my furniture like she was calculating its worth. Most of the stuff, honestly, Margie, you have to pay someone to haul away, she said one afternoon, holding up one of my mother's teacups. Nobody wants this anymore. It's not even the good china. It was my mother's. That made it priceless. But Vanessa didn't understand priceless. She only understood price tags. The conversations with Caleb got worse. He stopped asking how I was and started asking when I'd made my decision. Mom, you're being stubborn. Vanessa found a great realtor who says the house could sell fast if we list it this summer. It's my house, I reminded him. For now, Vanessa muttered, not quite under her breath. If you think you can sense when someone's plotting against you, hit like, because I couldn't. I started noticing small things going missing. Nothing major. A serving platter here. Some old books there. When I asked about them, Vanessa would say she'd taken them to be appraised or cleaned and would bring them back. She never did. I should have known. Should have seen it coming. But you don't expect your own family to rob you in slow motion. Then came that spring morning when everything changed. I was in the garden, trying to coax my stubborn dandelions into something that looked intentional when Vanessa's car pulled up. She didn't knock. Just walked right in with her phone in one hand and a trash bag in the other. "Oh, Margie, you poor thing," she called out. "I came to help you clean. Caleb says you've been hoarding again." Hoarding. I was protecting memories, not hoarding trash. But she wouldn't know the difference. She moved through my house like a hurricane, opening cabinets, pulling out drawers, tossing things into her bag. I followed behind her, anxiety rising in my throat. "Vanessa, please, I can do this myself." Nonsense. You need help whether you admit it or not. She went upstairs. I heard her footsteps in my bedroom, heard the creak of my cedar chest being opened. I should have run up there, should have stopped her. But I was tired and foolish, and still holding on to the hope that maybe she really was just trying to help. Later that week, I noticed the chest had been moved slightly, just an inch or two, but I'd lived in that room for 48 years. I knew where everything belonged. That's when I checked. That's when I found nothing but empty space where my velvet box used to rest. And then came the morning Vanessa arrived with that fake smile and a trash bag, saying she was there to help me clean. The phone call with Caleb ended at 4:17 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I remember because I stared at the clock on my wall for 20 minutes afterward, watching the second hand tick forward while my whole world ticked backward. Each second that passed was another moment I couldn't undo. Another moment I'd trusted the wrong people. She sold them. Those 3 words played on repeat in my head like a broken record. She sold them. My grandmother's brooch that survived the Depression. My mother's pearls that survived poverty and war. My diamond locket that held the last piece of my son's innocence. Gone. Turned into marble tile for a bathroom. I sat on my bedroom floor until my legs went numb. The cedar chest gaped open in front of me like a mouth mid-scream. My quilts were scattered everywhere, evidence of my desperate search. The late afternoon sun came through the window at that particular angle that makes dust particles look like tiny ghosts. Maybe that's what I was becoming. A ghost in my own home. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I tried to stand, but my knees buckled, so I crawled to the bed and pulled myself up. In the mirror above my dresser, I barely recognized the woman staring back. When had I become so small? So easy to dismiss? So easy to steal from? The worst part wasn't even the theft. It was the casualness of it. Caleb's voice on the phone, bored and irritated, like I was complaining about a grocery bill. "You weren't using them anyway, Mom." Like 50 years of memories could be measured by recent use. I thought about calling him back, screaming, demanding he get them back, every single piece. But where would I even start? Which pawn shop? Which jewelry store? How do you track down your own history after someone sold it for bathroom fixtures? My chest felt tight. For a moment, I worried I was having a heart attack like Tom did. Maybe that would be easier. Just slip away like he did, peaceful and unaware, before I had to face how thoroughly my own son had betrayed me. But my heart kept beating. Stubborn thing. Have you ever stayed quiet, just to plan your next move? Comment yes if you believe in quiet justice. I made it downstairs as the sun started setting. My living room looked different now, like I was seeing it through Vanessa's eyes. Outdated. Rustic. Nobody wants this anymore. The couch where I'd rocked Caleb through nightmares. Outdated. The bookshelf Tom built with his own hands. Rustic. The photographs of 3 generations of my family. Nobody wants this. I sat in Tom's old chair, the one with the worn armrest where his hand used to rest. If he could see what his son had become, would he recognize him? Or would he be as lost as I was? The phone rang. Caleb calling back. I let it ring. 6 times. 7. Finally, voicemail. "Mom, look, I know you're upset, but you're overreacting. They were just things. Material possessions. You always taught me that people matter more than things, remember? So, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Vanessa feels terrible that you're upset. Just call me back when you're ready to be reasonable. Just things. Material possessions." He actually used my own words against me. Twisted them. I taught him that people matter more than things, yes, but those things were people. My grandmother's courage in that brooch. My mother's love in those pearls. My son's innocence in that locket. Those weren't just things. They were proof that I came from somewhere. That I was someone. That my life had meaning beyond being an inconvenient old woman in the way of a bathroom remodel. I deleted the voicemail. Then I sat in the dark for a long time, my mind working through possibilities. I could hire a lawyer. I could call the police. I could show up at their house and cause a scene. But all of those options required something I didn't have anymore, the belief that Caleb would care, that he'd see my pain and feel sorry, that some part of my little boy still existed under Vanessa's influence. He'd called them just things while discussing bathroom tile. He'd sided with the woman who stole from his own mother. He'd laughed at my furniture, my life, my existence. My son was gone. Really gone. Not dead like his father, but gone in a worse way, transformed into someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could rob me and call it helping. Around midnight, I finally moved from the chair. My body ached from sitting so long. I walked upstairs slowly, each step creaking under my weight, and stood in my bedroom doorway. The cedar chest was still open, still empty. But as I stared at it, something shifted inside me. Not grief anymore. Something colder, harder. Something that had been sleeping for 72 years, waiting for this exact moment to wake up. Tom used to say, I had iron in my spine. Said it came from my mother, who got it from her mother, all the way back to women whose names I'd never learned, but whose strength I'd inherited. Vanessa thought she'd taken everything. Caleb thought I was helpless, defeated, ready to shuffle off to Meadowbrook Senior Living with a smile and a thank you. They thought I had nothing left. They were wrong. I walked to my writing desk, the one that had belonged to my grandfather, solid oak with brass handles. I ran my hand along the bottom drawer, felt for the small latch hidden in the woodwork. Click. The false bottom released. Inside, exactly where they'd been for 40 years, lay 6 bearer bonds. Yellowed paper with fancy script. My grandfather's insurance policy against banks he never trusted. $600,000. Nobody knew about them. Not Tom. Not Caleb. Nobody. I'd forgotten about them myself, honestly, until this moment. Until I needed to remember that I was more than just an old woman with a cedar chest. I was a woman with options. But grief can be the seed of something dangerous, and I was about to grow mine in silence. The next morning, I woke up and made myself breakfast like nothing had happened. Oatmeal with brown sugar, the way I'd made it for 40 years. Coffee in my mother's chipped mug, the one Vanessa had called tragic last Christmas. I ate slowly, watching the sun come up over my stubborn dandelion garden. Caleb called at 8:30. I let it go to voicemail. Vanessa called at 9. I answered. Margie. Oh, thank God. Caleb's been so worried. You haven't been returning his calls. My voice came out soft, tired. Exactly what they expected. I'm sorry, dear. I've just been feeling a bit under the weather. Oh, you poor thing. Is it your hip again? You really should think about that senior community. They have a nurse on staff 24/7. You might be right, I said, letting my voice crack just a little. This house is getting to be too much. Silence on her end. Then, really? You mean you're ready to think about Meadowbrook? I'm tired, Vanessa. Maybe it's time. I could practically hear her smile through the phone. Oh, Margie, that's so wonderful. This is the best decision. You're going to love it there. And don't you worry about the house. Caleb and I will handle everything. I know you will, I said sweetly. We talked for 10 more minutes. She told me about her bathroom tile, how beautiful it looked, how I'd love it. She didn't apologize for stealing my jewels. Didn't even mention them. The theft was already forgotten, buried under marble and grout, and her excitement about my surrender. After I hung up, I smiled at my reflection in the kitchen window. Let them think I'd given up. Over the next week, I played the part perfectly. I called Caleb and apologized for overreacting. I let Vanessa schedule a tour of Meadowbrook for the following month. I asked weak, confused questions about the moving process. Do they have activities? I asked, my voice wavering. I'd hate to be bored. Oh, Mom, so many activities. Caleb gushed. Bingo, crafts, movie nights. You'll make tons of friends. Friends. Like I was going to summer camp instead of being warehoused until I died. But I kept my tone light. Kept the mask on. They visited that Saturday, bringing paint samples for their house. Vanessa spread them across my kitchen table like she already owned the place. I'm thinking sage green for the living room, she said. Really modernize the space. Maybe knock out this wall here. She gestured at the wall between the kitchen and living room, the one Tom had repaired after the pipe burst in '94, and create an open concept. That sounds lovely, I said, offering them my homemade cookies. Caleb hugged me before they left. I'm so proud of you, Mom. This is really mature. Dad would be proud too. I smiled and said nothing. Dad would have been ashamed, I thought. But I kept that behind my teeth. Sometimes silence is the loudest weapon. Would you agree? Hit like if you believe revenge doesn't always need words. After they left, I got to work on my real plan. Monday morning, I took the bus downtown to see a lawyer. Not the family lawyer Caleb knew about, a new one. Young woman named Mara Gentry with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. Mrs. Linton, she said, gesturing to a chair. What can I do for you? I need to move some assets, I said. Quietly. Quickly. And I need it done correctly so nobody can contest it later. She leaned forward. Tell me everything. So I did. Told her about the jewels, the betrayal, the pressure to sell my home. Told her about the bearer bonds nobody knew existed. Told her about Caleb and Vanessa planning their future with my house while I was still living in it. Mara's jaw tightened. How much time do we have? They think they have all the time in the world, I said. But I'd like to move fast. Good. She pulled out paperwork. Let's make sure they never see it coming. Over the next 3 weeks, I became an actress. I smiled at Vanessa's daily calls. I nodded at Caleb's plans. I signed the papers Mara prepared while they thought I was napping. I cashed in the bearer bonds slowly in small amounts through several banks. Mara helped me set up accounts they couldn't trace. We moved carefully, legally, perfectly. At night, alone in my house, I'd walk through each room. I'd touch the walls Tom painted. I'd sit at the table where I'd helped Caleb with homework. I'd stand in the doorway of his old bedroom, still decorated like a teenager lived there. This house held my whole life. Every sacrifice, every joy, every loss. And I was about to give it away. But not to them. Vanessa came by one afternoon with fabric samples for curtains. She'd already picked them out, just wanted to show me for fun. You won't need to pack much, Margie. Most of this furniture is too old for your new place anyway. We'll probably just donate it. That makes sense, I said, my voice soft and defeated. She practically bounced with excitement. And once we sell, we're thinking of adding a deck out back. Maybe a hot tub. This property has so much potential. It does, I agreed. She didn't notice that I'd already started removing photographs from the walls. Small ones at first. Pictures of my mother, my grandmother. I packed them carefully in boxes I hid in the attic. She didn't notice that my cedar chest, the one she'd violated, was now empty by my choice. I'd given away the quilts to the church. Better they go to people who'd appreciate them than to Vanessa's trash bag. She didn't notice that I was erasing myself from the house one piece at a time, preparing for an exit they couldn't imagine. Caleb called one evening, his voice warm with relief. Mom, I just want to say thank you. I know this wasn't easy, but you're doing the right thing. Vanessa and I were talking and we think we can get the house listed by summer. The market's really hot right now. That's wonderful, honey, I said. And Don't worry about feeling lonely at Meadowbrook. We'll visit. Maybe not every week, but regularly. Maybe not every week. My son, who I'd raised alone, who I'd worked 2 jobs for, who I'd sacrificed everything for, would visit me, maybe not every week, in the facility they were dumping me in so they could have my house. I appreciate that, I said. After I hung up, I looked at the calendar. 3 more weeks until my plan was complete. 3 more weeks of playing weak, of playing grateful, of pretending I didn't see their greed or feel their betrayal. If they wanted me out of that house, fine. But they'd leave empty-handed. The bearer bond sat in front of me on Mara's desk, transformed into certified checks totaling $603,000 after interest. My grandfather had hidden them in 1982, didn't trust banks after seeing what the Depression did to his parents. He told my mother about them on his deathbed, and she told me the same way, a whispered secret, a last gift, a safety net I never thought I'd need. Until now. Mrs. Linton, Mara said, sliding paperwork across her desk. Once you sign these, the transfer is permanent. Are you absolutely certain? I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. I've never been more certain of anything. The first check went into a trust for St. Helen's Orphanage, the place my mother had volunteered every Saturday for 20 years. The place that saved children nobody else wanted. The place that understood what it meant to be thrown away. $300,000. Enough to renovate their crumbling building. Enough to feed and clothe kids for years. Enough to honor my mother's memory better than any pearl earrings ever could. The second check, smaller but significant, went into a private account for my own future. The lakeside cottage I'd found, the one Vanessa and Caleb knew nothing about. Small, paid in full, with enough left over that I'd never burden anyone again. The house? Mara asked. I pulled out the deed. The paper was old, edges yellowed, my name printed in careful script from 1977. I want it transferred to St. Helen's as well. They can sell it, use it, whatever they need. Mara's pen paused. Your son will contest this. Let him try. I met her eyes. My name is on that deed. I'm of sound mind, and I have the right to do whatever I want with my property. She smiled then, something fierce in it. My mother grew up at St. Helen's. Did I mention that? She was dropped off there when she was 4. The nuns raised her, fed her, taught her. She became a teacher, because of them. I didn't know, I said softly. They saved her life. Mara's voice was steady, professional, but her eyes were bright. And now you're helping them save more. We'll make absolutely certain your son can't touch any of this. What would you have done with the secret fortune? Comment your first move. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved like a ghost through my own life, packing boxes in secret, donating items to thrift stores 3 towns over where nobody knew me, calling the cottage landlord to arrange my move-in date. Vanessa kept calling with updates about our house. She'd hired contractors to start work the moment I moved out. Had picked paint colors, light fixtures, cabinet hardware. I'm thinking we might even put in hardwood floors, Margie. Really class the place up. That sounds beautiful, I said, stirring my tea. Caleb stopped by one evening with Chinese takeout. We ate at my kitchen table, the one he'd eaten at for 18 years, and he told me about his plans. We're thinking of starting a family soon, Mom. Once the house is ready. Can you imagine? You'll be a grandmother. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Tried to find some trace of the boy who'd held my hand at his father's funeral. The boy who'd made me breakfast in bed on Mother's Day with burnt toast and watery eggs. The boy who'd cried when I'd cried and laughed when I'd laughed. He was gone. This man eating lo mein in my kitchen was someone else entirely. That's wonderful, honey, I said. He didn't notice I was saying goodbye. The day before everything changed, I walked through my house one last time. Touched every wall, every doorframe, every window. Said goodbye to 48 years. In Caleb's old room, I found a photo I'd missed him at 7, missing his front teeth, holding up a crayon drawing of our family. 3 stick figures, him, me, and Tom. Above us, he'd written in crooked letters, "My family is the best." I tucked it in my purse. One last piece of who he used to be. That night, I barely slept. Lay in my bed, in my house for the last time. Tomorrow, Mara would file all the paperwork. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, they'd learn what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. The same week Vanessa scheduled contractors for their remodel, I was writing a different kind of blueprint. Moving day came on a Tuesday in June. Not my moving day, theirs. The day Caleb and Vanessa were coming to help me pack and finalize everything before my scheduled tour of Meadowbrook that Friday. They'd arranged it all. So efficient, so helpful, already talking about listing agents and open houses. I'd moved out 3 days earlier. At dawn, before anyone was awake. The cottage by the lake was small, 1 bedroom, a kitchen with windows facing the water, a porch where I could watch sunsets. I'd bought it with cash from the bearer bonds. Nobody's name on it but mine. My boxes were already unpacked. My photographs already hung. My mother's teacup already in the cupboard. But they didn't know that. At 10 a.m., I parked my old sedan across the street from what used to be my house and waited. Mara sat beside me in the passenger seat, a folder of documents in her lap. "You sure you want to be here for this?" she asked. "Wouldn't miss it." Vanessa's luxury SUV pulled up at 10:15. She was early, probably eager to start measuring rooms. Caleb got out from the passenger side, already on his phone with someone. Probably the contractor. They walked to the door. Vanessa had a key. I'd given it to her months ago when she'd insisted she needed access, in case of emergency. They opened the door and stopped. Right there in the front yard, where there'd been nothing yesterday, stood a sign. Professional, official, impossible to miss. Property donated to St. Helen's Home for Children. No trespassing. I watched Vanessa's face through my windshield. Watched confusion shift to shock, shift to something like panic. Caleb pulled out his phone, calling me. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mom, what's going on?" "There's a sign here saying..." "I know what it says," I interrupted gently. "I put it there." Silence. "What do you mean you put it there?" Vanessa had grabbed the phone. "Margie, this isn't funny. We have contractors coming next week. We have..." "You have nothing," I said, my voice steady. "The house is mine, Vanessa. Was mine. And I donated it." "You can't do that." "I already did. 3 days ago. The deed transferred to St. Helen's Orphanage. It's legally theirs now." I could hear her breathing, fast and sharp. "You're lying. You're confused. You don't know what you're doing. Caleb, she's lost her mind." "I'm sitting across the street right now," I said, "with my lawyer. Would you like to see the paperwork? If you believe karma never misses, share the story to remind someone who needs it." Mara and I got out of the car. I walked slowly, taking my time, letting them watch me approach. I wasn't frail anymore. Wasn't confused. Wasn't the old woman they'd decided I was. Vanessa's face had gone pale. Caleb looked between me and the sign, like he couldn't process what he was seeing. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking. "What did you do?" "I did some spring cleaning," I said softly. "Something you both kept suggesting." "That's our inheritance." Vanessa shrieked. "You can't just give away our house." "Your house." I tilted my head. "Funny. I thought it was mine. The same way my jewels were mine. The ones you sold for bathroom tile, without asking." Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You held a grudge over that?" "They were just old jewelry, Margie. We needed the money for improvements. And I needed those memories," I said quietly. "But you didn't care about that, did you? Just like you didn't care when you called my furniture junk, my dishes trash, my life outdated." Caleb stepped forward. "Mom, please. We can fix this. We can. We can get your jewelry back. I'll find them. I'll buy them back. With what money? I asked. The money you were going to make selling my house? He flinched. Mara stepped forward, professional and cold. Mrs. Linton is of sound mind and body. The deed transfer is legal and final. St. Helens Orphanage is now the owner of this property. I suggest you leave before I call the police for trespassing. This is insane. Vanessa turned to Caleb. Your mother is insane. We'll contest this. We'll sue. We'll prove she's not capable of making these decisions. Try it, Mara said calmly. I have 3 independent psychiatric evaluations confirming Mrs. Linton's mental competence. I have documentation of her careful planning over several months. And I have witnesses to your harassment and attempted financial exploitation of an elderly woman. Vanessa's face went from pale to red. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. I raised you better than this, Caleb. I worked 2 jobs to give you everything. I sacrificed 48 years of my life in this house so you'd have a home. And the moment you had a chance, you sold my memories and tried to sell my house out from under me. Mom, his voice cracked. I'm not your mom anymore, I said, and something inside me broke and healed at the same time. I'm just an old woman who learned too late that some people love things more than people. I walked them to the door. Slowly, quietly. Then I closed it behind them. When they arrived to finalize my move, they found a for sale sign replaced by another, and truth they never saw coming. The door closed with a soft click that echoed louder than any slam. Through the window, I watched Vanessa pace the front yard, screaming into her phone. Probably her own lawyer. Probably already planning their attack. Caleb stood by the car, hands in his pockets, staring at the house like he'd never seen it before. Good. Let him stare. Let him remember what he'd thrown away. Mara touched my shoulder. They'll fight this. You know that, right? Let them. I turned away from the window. I've got right on my side. We left through the back door. I didn't look back. That evening, sitting in my new cottage with tea and the sunset painting the lake orange and gold, my phone rang. Caleb. I answered. Mom, please. He was crying. Actually crying. We can work this out. Vanessa's just upset. She didn't mean those things she said. We made mistakes, okay? But you can't just give away the house. That's 48 years of our family. Your father's memory, I interrupted. My sacrifice. My life. Not yours, Caleb. You stopped caring about that house the moment you saw it as money. That's not fair. You sold my grandmother's brooch for bathroom tile. You took my mother's pearls without asking. You laughed when Vanessa called my furniture junk. My voice stayed steady. Tell me what part of that was fair. Silence. I loved you more than anything in this world. I continued. I gave you everything I had. And the first chance you got, you and your wife treated me like trash to be disposed of. Mom, I'm sorry. Sorry isn't a time machine, honey. It doesn't bring back my jewelry. It doesn't undo the months of you planning my future without asking what I wanted. I watched the sun sink lower. I'm not at Meadowbrook. I'm not going to Meadowbrook. I'm in a cottage you didn't know about, bought with money you didn't know existed, living the life I choose. Money? What money? Mom, what are you talking about? Would you have felt satisfied at that moment? Or wanted more revenge? Tell me below. Goodbye, Caleb. I hung up. He called back immediately. I turned my phone off. The next morning, Mara called my landline at the cottage. They filed a petition to contest the donation, claiming undue influence, diminished capacity, the works. Expected, I said, pouring coffee. Mrs. Linton, they're bringing everything. Character witnesses. Medical experts. They're spending serious money on this. Good thing I'm not, I said. How strong is our case? Airtight. She sounded satisfied. You want to know the best part? The evaluations I mentioned? One was from their own family doctor. The one they insisted you see last year, for memory issues. He gave you a perfect bill of health. I laughed. Actually laughed. They were building a case against me even then. And it backfired beautifully. Papers rustled on her end. There's something else. St. Helens director called. She wants to meet you. The meeting happened on a Saturday. St. Helens was on the east side of town, a 3-story brick building that had seen better days. Paint peeling, roof sagging, playground equipment rusty. My $300,000 would fix all of that. Sister Margaret, no relation, but we shared a name, met me at the door. She was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with kind eyes and calloused hands. Mrs. Linton. She gripped my hands tight. I don't have words. What you've done for these children. My mother volunteered here, I said. Every Saturday, for 20 years. This is for her. She walked me through the building, showed me the 19 children currently in residence, ages 4 to 17. Showed me the leaking roof, the broken heater, the kitchen where volunteers stretched every dollar to feed hungry mouths. With your donation, Sister Margaret said, we can fix everything. We can take in more children. We can hire another counselor. We can, her voice broke. We can save more lives. In the common room, a little girl was drawing at a table. Maybe 6 years old, dark braids, concentrating hard on her paper. She looked up when we passed. Is that the angel lady? She asked Sister Margaret. This is Mrs. Linton, Sister Margaret said gently. The girl came over, held up her drawing. It showed a house with a big heart on it. Sister Margaret said, an angel gave us a house. Is that you? I knelt down, my hip protesting. I'm not an angel, sweetheart. Just someone who wanted to help. My grandma helped people too, the girl said. Before she got too old, and they sent her away. I miss her. Something in my chest cracked wide open. This was what family meant. Not blood or legal ties. Not obligation or inheritance. But choosing to care. Choosing to protect. Choosing to love people who needed it. What's your name? I asked. Emma. Well, Emma, I think your grandma would be very proud of you. She smiled and went back to her drawing. Sister Margaret walked me out. They'll try to take it back, won't they? Your family? They'll try, I agreed. They won't succeed. But the storm wasn't over. Vanessa still had one last trick. The lawsuit came 3 weeks later. Petition to contest donation and declare incompetence. 23 pages of legal language that boiled down to, Margaret Linton is crazy and doesn't know what she's doing. Mara read it over the phone while I sat on my porch watching ducks paddle across the lake. They're claiming you were manipulated by me, that I took advantage of your grief over the jewelry theft to steal your assets. That's absurd. It's desperate, she corrected, which makes it dangerous. They've hired Preston and Associates. Big firm, lots of resources. They're claiming emotional distress, financial harm, breach of familial duty. I had a duty to let them steal from me? According to them, you had a duty to preserve your estate for your heir. She paused. They're also subpoenaing your medical records going back 5 years, looking for anything that suggests cognitive decline. They won't find it. I know. But Mrs. Linton, this is going to get ugly. They're going to put you on the stand. Question your decisions, your mental state, your relationship with your son. They'll bring up every doctor's appointment, every forgotten name, every moment you seemed confused. I sipped my tea. Let them. I've got nothing to hide. There's more. Her voice went quiet. They've started a social media campaign. Vanessa's posted about how her poor, confused mother-in-law was tricked by a predatory lawyer into giving away the family home. It's getting traction. My phone had been off for weeks. I hadn't seen any of it. What are people saying? Mixed. Some support her. Others see through it. But it's creating public pressure. The judge might. The judge will look at the facts, I said firmly. Not Facebook posts. Have you ever been underestimated, only to surprise everyone? Like this video if you know that feeling. The court date was set for August 15th. Mara prepared me like a soldier for battle. Mock questions, practice testimony, reviewing documents until I could recite them in my sleep. They'll try to confuse you, she warned. Make you seem forgetful or emotional. Don't let them. I've faced worse than lawyers, I said. I buried my husband and raised my son alone. I worked 2 jobs for 18 years. A man in a suit asking questions doesn't scare me. But the day before court, Caleb showed up at the cottage. I don't know how he found me. Maybe hired an investigator. Maybe asked around town. But there he was on my porch at 7 a.m., looking like he hadn't slept in days.
Mom, please, can we talk?
I almost closed the door. Almost. But something in his face, exhaustion, maybe, or genuine regret, made me pause. 5 minutes, I said. We sat on the porch.
Didn't offer him tea.
I've been thinking, he started.
About Dad.
About what he'd say if he could see us now. He'd be ashamed of you. Caleb flinched but nodded.
Yeah.
He would. He stared at his hands. I don't know when I became this person, Mom. When I started caring more about money than you. Vanessa, she's... Don't blame your wife for your choices, I interrupted. You're a grown man. You decided to laugh when she mocked me. You decided to sell my jewelry. You decided to plan my life without asking what I wanted. I know. His voice cracked. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I could take it back. But you can't.
No.
He looked at me. But I can stop. I can drop the lawsuit. I can tell Vanessa it's over. I can try to be the son you deserve. For a moment, just one moment, I wanted to believe him. Wanted to hug him like I did when he was 12 and scared and missing his father. Wanted to fix everything with forgiveness and pretend the last year hadn't happened. But I'd learned something important. Wanting to believe someone isn't the same as trusting them. Drop the lawsuit, I said. Then we'll see. Really? Hope lit his face. You mean that? I mean I'll consider talking to you if you prove you've changed. Not with words, Caleb. With actions. He left 20 minutes later, promising he'd call his lawyer that day. I watched him drive away and felt nothing. Not hope, not anger. Just tired. Mara called that afternoon. They've dropped it. The lawsuit's withdrawn. It's over. Just like that. Just like that. She sounded suspicious too, though they're keeping the social media stuff up. Vanessa's still posting about how you've abandoned your family. Let her post, I said. The truth doesn't need her approval. The hearing was cancelled. St. Helens kept the house and the money. Sister Margaret called to tell me they'd already started repairs on the roof. The children made you cards, she said. Thank you cards. Emma drew another picture. Tell her I'd love to see it. Over the next month, Caleb called 3 times. Asked if we could meet for coffee. Asked if I'd reconsider about the house. Not for him, but for his future children, my future grandchildren. I didn't answer. Vanessa's social media campaign eventually fizzled out when someone pointed out she'd sold her mother-in-law's heirloom jewelry for bathroom renovations. Public opinion shifted fast after that. And me? I sat on my porch every evening, watching the lake turn gold and pink and purple as the sun set. No one telling me my furniture was junk. No one measuring my worth by my real estate. No one calling me Margie. They thought they'd win, until the final ruling changed everything. The first snow came early that November, dusting the lake in white like powdered sugar. I was 73 now. 1 year older, infinitely wiser, and finally at peace. My cottage stayed warm through the winter. I'd made friends with my neighbors, actual friends, not people who wanted something from me. Betty from 2 doors down brought me soup when I had a cold. Frank across the way helped me hang bird feeders. Normal people doing normal kindnesses because that's what neighbors do. Not because I had a house they wanted to inherit. St. Helens sent updates every month. Photographs of the new roof, the renovated kitchen, the playground with equipment that didn't rust. Sister Margaret called on Christmas to tell me they'd taken in 6 more children since September. 6 more kids who needed shelter and love. Emma asks about you, she said. She wants to know if you'll visit. I'd like that, I said.
And I meant it.
Caleb sent a card in January. No return address, just a short note. I'm sorry. I mean it this way. I hope someday you can forgive me. I love you, Mom. I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Maybe in time. Maybe never. But I'd learned that my peace didn't require his redemption. That was his work to do, not mine. Vanessa, I heard through town gossip, had filed for divorce in December. Apparently, she'd expected Caleb to fight harder for the inheritance. When he dropped the lawsuit, she'd seen him as weak. Within 3 months, she'd left him for a real estate developer in Connecticut. I felt nothing about that either. No satisfaction, no pity. Just nothing. They'd sold their house to pay legal fees before the lawsuit dropped. Moved into a small apartment near the city. Caleb got a second job to make ends meet. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd wanted my house to improve his life, and instead he'd lost everything trying to take what wasn't his. Quiet justice doesn't scream. It just waits. On a Tuesday in March, I drove to St. Helens for the first time since August. The building looked transformed, fresh paint, new windows, a playground where children actually played. Happy sounds instead of creaking silence. Emma saw me through the window and ran outside, no coat despite the cold. Angel lady. She crashed into me with a hug. You came back. I promised I would, I said, hugging her tight. She dragged me inside to show me everything. Her new bed, the library with actual books, the art room where she could draw whenever she wanted. She showed me her latest picture, a woman with white hair sitting by a lake. That's you, she said proudly. Sister Margaret said you live by the water now. Is it pretty? Very pretty, I said. Would you like to visit sometime? Her eyes went wide. Really? Sister Margaret smiled. If Mrs. Linton is offering, sweetheart, you should say yes. So Emma came to visit on Saturdays. Just a few hours, but enough. She'd draw on my porch, feed the ducks, ask questions about everything. She reminded me what it felt like to be needed by someone who didn't want anything but company. She called me Grandma Margaret after the second visit. I didn't correct her. One evening in late April, sitting on my porch with tea and the sunset painting everything gold, I thought about my mother's pearls, my grandmother's brooch, my diamond locket with Caleb's baby hair. I miss them. I'd always miss them. But I'd learned something those pieces of jewelry couldn't teach me. You can lose everything and still have enough. You can be betrayed by blood and still find family. You can give away a fortune and become richer than you ever were. The greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's building something better from the ashes. I thought about Vanessa sometimes, wondering if she ever realized what she'd lost. Not the house or the money, those were just things. But the chance to know a woman who'd survived everything life threw at her. A woman who'd loved deeply, sacrificed fully, and chosen grace over bitterness. Her loss, not mine. I thought about Caleb more often. My son, who I still loved despite everything. Who might still find his way back to the boy he used to be. Who might still learn that worth isn't measured in square footage or inheritance. But that was his journey. I'd done my part. The lake rippled in the breeze, 1,000 tiny mirrors catching light. My reflection looked different now. Not pale or hollow or foolish. Just a woman who'd learned to choose herself without apologizing. Peace doesn't need gold to shine. It just needs you to stop letting other people dim your light. Sometimes people ask if I ever got revenge on Caleb and Vanessa. They expect some dramatic story of public humiliation or financial ruin. I just smile and say nothing, because they'll never understand. I did get revenge. The best kind. I reclaimed my life. I protected my dignity. I helped children who needed help instead of adults who wanted handouts. I chose peace over rage, generosity over greed, and myself over people who only loved what I could give them. And every morning, I wake up in a home I chose, surrounded by people who value me, living a life they'll never control again. That's not revenge. That's freedom. And sometimes, I still dream of that cedar chest, not for what it once held, but for the strength it woke inside me. The strength that was always there, passed down through generations of women who survived, who endured, who taught me that the truest measure of wealth isn't locked in safes or displayed on velvet trays. It's what lives inside your heart when everything else is stripped away. Mine was finally full again. If you believe peace is the best revenge, share this story and subscribe for more true stories of quiet justice told softly but powerfully. Turn on notifications so you never miss another story of courage, karma, and reclaimed dignity. And tell me in the comments, would you have done the same, or would you have handled it differently? Your thoughts might inspire someone who needs to hear them. Thank you for being part of this family. Until next time, remember, you're stronger than anyone who underestimates you.